So we're back. It's COMP213, and it's week 8, lesson 8, part 4. And again, we're supposed to cover stuff in the PowerPoint presentation today, but I really wanted you guys to get into this Visual Studio 2013 stuff. And we covered the material, but we're covering it. I'm covering it, and then I'm reviewing with PowerPoints. I'm not going to go over every single PowerPoint slide. You guys are going to have the PowerPoints available to you. They're going to be on the website after the end of this week, so you can follow along that way. You can also do it so that, and I'm going to try and post all the PowerPoints ahead of time on the website, so you can go up there and grab it. And I'm also going to put it up on eCentennial by the end of the week, which is today. Sometime today, I'll put it up. So again, from a course perspective, this is not what I want. We're looking at week 8, lesson 8. We talked about CSS basics last time. I'm going to go into page layout basics a little bit this time, right, to kind of cover this piece. And we're going to talk about things like the float. We talked about float, fixed positioning, and relative positioning. Talk about what those things are. And let's get into this piece right here. I want to show you what this is now, right? And to demonstrate this a little bit, you've got this first box, and this is the second box. Now these things, if you notice, they're one is relative to another one, right? The other one box is inside the first box. The second box, or the inner box, is inside the outer box. You can do that too. And the box model allows you to do this. It allows you to go from outside to inside, right? Because you can have as many layers, if you will, as you like, right, inside the first box, or as many nested sections or nested div tags, one inside the other. An example of that, and going back to code, is what we did here, right? In my index.html, I have my section, and inside my section I have this div tag. This div tag is another container inside the container. Box within a box. That's what it is, right? And inside that you have a couple of other boxes. I have my h2 box, which contains my value, my text photo gallery, right? Each component in my HTML page is a node, if you think about it, right? Almost like a box of its own, right? That's how, in your mind, you should think about everything that I have on my HTML page as a box, right? Or a container of some kind. So my h2 tag, even though it has photo gallery in it, h2 is a container tag for photo gallery. And its styles, it's a different style from my photo gallery, right, as an example. And my UL has a certain functionality. UL is the container for all my list items, right? And my list items is a container for my image tag, right? Each item is a container, right? And as long as you figure this out, once you've, in your mind, you see what this thing, I'm just going to take the ClearFix class away for a second. Each time when you think about this, this container idea, right? That one container has multiple containers inside of it. You have this idea here. Go back to this, where you have first box and inside there is another box. Let's talk about some background stuff. So I want to add a background color to my my navigation. Hey, by the way, do you guys remember how to do navigation stuff? If I have some links, right, navigation links, but I want to create a nav, right, for my navigation. And I want each of my navigation links, my UL, each of them to be next to each other. How do I do that? So I want to fix that up, right? Because I've got my navigation, but it's pretty ugly right now, right? Here's my navigation. Here are my links, 1, 2, 3. I got my UL and my LI. I want to do basic nav, and I want to make sure that my CSS kind of puts everything next to each other. What do I put here for my navigation so that anything in my nav bar, in my nav, right? The UL, the LI, the list elements in my nav bar are next to each other. How do I do that? Huh? Well, LI float left now. That's not good. I don't want to do that. Huh? Inline. I like that. So I want to do, but I don't want to do all my LIs inline. I just want to do the LIs inside my UL from my nav. How do I do that? Well, remember in CSS how it works. Let's get rid of this ClearFix. I'm not using it right now. I'm going to go nav, right? I start off with my nav bar, right? My nav bar inside that contains a UL. unordered list that contains li, the li tag now I'm specifying, right? The li element has to be inline. So I'm going to say display inline, right? If I do this, is that enough? You're the smarty, you tell me. Yeah. I'm targeting my list item, right? Is this enough to kind of do? So what I'm doing is each tag I'm looking for, I'm filtering one tag down. If I just had nav just by itself, it would be all nav bars. Okay, good. All nav bars. That's how I say this line. All nav bars that contain UL elements, a UL container, unordered list, right? And that also have LI list items inside of a UL, right? All list items inside of a UL that all have, all navs have a display that's inline, right? Okay, inline. Let's see how that works, how that affects my CSS. So here's what it looks like now. I refresh, right? And if it's running, which it's not, because I saved it to GitHub, then it's in line now. This is my navigation, right? In line. Okay, I want to get rid of my underline, because underlines are passé. We don't want to use underlines for my navigation, right? How do I get rid of my navigation, my list item, my underline? What do I do? Huh? I want to capture my A tag is the thing that I have my link, right? So I want to get rid of my underline. So it's a text decoration, right? Text decoration is thing. So now I can't use this one. I have to do the same thing. I can say, all right, let's go try this again. All nav bars that contain ULs that have an LI with an A tag, right? I'm specifying the A tag in it, right? I want to have this. I'm being very specific here. I want to have the text decoration is none, right? Which means I'm taking away the underline, right? If I refresh, then the underlines, if I write, should be gone, right? Okay, so I've kind of created my nav, but you know what? I can't tell anything's happening here. What the hell, right? This is no good. Well, it will work now. If I have a link, it'll go to my new link. Here's my links, they work, right? So if I have a link, it'll go there, right? But there's no feedback for the user that I'm doing anything, right? And this is what we need to do. We have to create something called a pseudo class, a decorator, right? So how do I do that? Well, I want to say that when I hover over the link, right, I want my text decoration to change, right? So how do I do that? I want to put my underline back only when I'm hovering over, right? So let's try that out. So I go like this. I'll put this back, and I already have this rule, and I want to say : hover, right? And this is my pseudo class, right? My pseudo, it's not really a class, but it tells me this situation, when I hover over my A tag, I want my text decoration to be underlined, right? That's pretty simple. Yeah, that's a pretty simple navigation scheme, right? So let's try that out. So I'm going to go back to here and refresh, and immediately you don't see anything. But when I hover, now I get this kind of feedback that tells me, hey, if I hover over this thing, I get these links, right? Make sense? You could probably rename these links now because the links are kind of ugly, right? So maybe what I'll do is I'll add in the link names, right? So here, instead of link 1, we'll call this, we're starting to add more content. I'm going to call this home, right? And you know what? I'm also going to call the link 2, we're going to call this maybe products. We don't have any products right now. Well, maybe we will. This is the standard 5-page, right? Five-page website. Services, about me and contact me, right? About me, and then contact me, right? Okay, there we go. So home, product, service, about me, contact me. If I refresh now, my links, instead of link 1, link 2, link 3, will look like this. This is okay. But you know what? I think I need a little bit more separation between these links. There's not enough of separation here to create my thing. I need more separation. I think I need more padding between the two. So how would I do that, right? So I go back to my CSS, and I have my li tag, right? Remember, my li tag is also a container, right? And the li tag can include padding between li tags, right? Between list items. If I was to show you what they look like, let's put a temporary border so we can see. So I'm going to say border for my li tags. We'll make them red, right? 1 pixel dotted right, red, just for debugging purposes, so we understand what's going on, right? And then let's see what it looks like when I do that. This is what they look like. That's my LIs, right? So inside my LI, I want to have a little bit of padding inside my LI, my list item, right? Maybe it's going to include pictures tomorrow, images, icons, whatever, right? I want to have padding inside of there, right? So otherwise it's going to be too tight. So I want to have padding all around, not just padding for left and right. So I might as well just add a padding in there. Oops, not adding, padding. And let's say it doesn't have to be a lot this time. I'm going to add a padding of 5 pixels. Right? So now when I go back, right, refresh, I have a padding of 5 pixels. It looks a little better. It almost looks like some navigation, right? Some stuff going on. Basic. That's all it is. It's a basic, very basic idea here, right? Okay, so now I have my products, my services, my buys a little bit cleaner. I'll leave my box around here just to give you a physical indicator what it looks like, right? Okay. Let's go back to the PowerPoint for a second. So we talked about I can add something called a background color. Well, I want to add a background color to my navigation, right? So I will say background dash color and then a color, right? And it looks like they say here it's an H1 tag. I'm not going to put in my H1 tag. I want to put it on my navigation element, right? So remember, I'm going to go back to this, right? So I have a nav bar. I have my image, my header. I have my nav, and I'm specifying my UL and LI and my hover. But I also want to specify my nav, just my nav bar itself. So the nav container itself, right? I want to put a background color. Right, and by the way, it's the American spelling color, right? Always. Background color, and I want to put some kind of background color in there. Now, you know what? I like black as a background color. Let's just say black, something stark, right? Some black color, right? Okay, this is good and bad. Tell me what's going to happen now when I put a black. What do you predict is going to happen if I put a black color around the background of my image, of my text is gone, right? That means that my nav, I have to change my nav links so that they're a different color, like white or something like that. So that means, what am I targeting? I'm targeting my A tag, right, from my my container in here, right? So here I can use my color, right? I can specify as white. So I know that's what's going to happen. I know that my A is going to be changed. All right, cool. So let's try this out now. Refresh. And now you see that there's still this box around here because I left the box there. And you know what? This is an example of where my my nav bar itself doesn't have any padding, right? So I could add additional padding inside my nav bar so it separates my elements inside, right? And also, if you notice these boxes, they overflow, right? This is bad. I want my overflow from my nav bar to be auto, right? So it flows properly, right? So that's another thing I want to add in. So I say, well, you know, definitely my overflow is going to be auto, right? And let's just try that first without anything else. See what happens when I do that, right? So overflow auto, and refresh, right? Now look, that stuff is inside, and I want to put a padding in here just to. Oh look, I've got a bit of this going on. I don't want that. That's maybe not the right thing, huh? Okay, overflow auto and my nav, bad, right? But let's also add a padding in here of like, 10 pixels all the way around again. 10 pixels. I'm using my box model to align my nav a little bit more and more, right? I'm doing it by hand, right? Okay, that's a little better, right? Nav bar, right? Okay, how do I want to do this. This is good, right? But I want to push everything, all my nav elements to the right. How do I do that? I want to put, what was that? Float right does a different thing, right? Because I'm pushing all these elements. These are all in line, but I want to push my nav, this whole thing, right? This UL to the right. Huh? Margin left? I could. My problem with margin left is if I do one of these, right? If I do one of these, right? Look how it really weirdly overflows, right? I don't have a true responsive design yet because, see, my navigation all messes up, right? But don't worry about that for now. But the point is that if I do this, my total space for my stuff scrunches up, right? And it gives me a different situation later on, right? So I could do what you're saying, but I wouldn't do it to my to each individual LI. I would do it to the UL, the unordered list. I want to move the unordered list to the right, right? If I want to center it, I would put margin auto on both sides, right? For my UL. I'll show you what I mean. So if I go to my UL, so I'm in my nav, I'm only targeting my UL. See how it goes, my rules go. Nav, targeting my UL, only my UL, right? And not my LI items. I want to create a margin, right? This is kind of weird. A left margin and right margin of auto, right? And the I want to have my my top and bottom 0. I don't want to have a margin on top, right? So how would I do it? 0 auto, right? 0 auto, right? If that's true, it'll push everything in the middle of my container, right? Let's see how that works. If I want in the middle, if it works properly, right? Hey, what happened? How come it didn't work? How come my change didn't go up? It didn't work. I targeted my UL. They're inside I put margin auto, 0 auto. How come? Because it's being overridden. That's why, by this. Right? Once I start displaying inline and do all kinds of weird stuff, I'm targeting my list items. My UL is my container, and my UL is also, this is where the overflow is happening, right? So I've got it right now in my nav. Here's my overflow auto, right? My nav is taking in my items, but my unordered list is containing my list items. So what if I did this? See what that does, right? Overflow is a weird thing. We'll talk about that in a second, right? But let's see what that does now. See, that takes away look at how it took away my border. And it added this back again. I don't want that, right? It's almost like my UL has to have a little bit of a margin and padding as well, right? Which is kind of weird. It kind of continues to pad my box up here, right? That's not really what it does. So margin 0 auto, in this particular case, even if I'm targeting my UL, doesn't work. Doesn't work, right? How about if I was going to target my UL, everything that's inside my UL, all my text alignment, right? Text inside my alignment of my text is center. Is that going to do it? Right? Because I'm using, in my UL, all my text. Is there text in ULs? Well, yeah, there is, right? And that does it. That moves it around, right? And what about if I want to put it right? That's the quick and dirty way to do it, right? I can just use text align right, and then that would be able to justify it to the right justify. So, and now, no matter where I go, right, it's going to go to the right, no matter how big my page is, right, which is right. It's going to respond instead of having a fixed margin anywhere I like. Right, now it looks more like some kind of nav, huh? More, not quite yet. I also want my home, like now my scheme is an underline, right? But I want my, if you notice my box, here's my box for my UL, right? My box for my UL. There's a bit of padding between outside of my UL. I want it to be, to go the whole length if I wanted to. If not, I have this separation, right? That's what's happening here. And I'm doing this scheme where I don't know what page I'm on right now. But what if I wanted to have my active link or my active page? I create a new class, because anything can have it, not just one. I want to create a new class called active, right? Not a link active, because even if I press this, it's going to change the color, right? I don't want my link to change color. I know that if I'm on my home page, right, my home page will show the underline right away, even if I'm not hovering over it, right? This is standard stuff, by the way. So this is where I can create a class. I'm going to create a class called active, right? Just a class itself called active. And anytime I have an active class, right, I want my text decoration for anything that has an active class attached to it to be underlined, right? So I don't have anything applied. This active class hasn't been applied to anything, but I want to apply it later on, right? I want to apply it to my my home page, right? So I go to my home link, and if you notice, here's my LI, right? Here's my A, and here's my home. Where would I apply it? Would I apply it in my A tag, right? My underline, that's where it goes, right? It's an A tag that I want my class to be applied to. So I say class equals active, right? So my class is active. So, and I can put this anywhere. I can put this, it doesn't have to be just for my home tag. Anything that's active, it'll go there, right? So let's refresh this thing. And now I got my underline at home, right? Always, right? Doesn't matter whether I'm hovering over it or not. I can still hover over here, but I know I'm home because that's my active link, if you will. Right? So again, I've created a nav with a bit of a background, and that's what we've done here. I've also talked about padding and how we can do things with margins and everything else and float right. I've explained that. It's part of this next this next PowerPoint that we're doing. I'm just going to go a couple more slides here in the PowerPoint. The idea that we're trying to do is we're creating this idea of a wrapper. And this 2-column layout that we have here that we're going to tackle next day when we get together again, even though if I'm a little slower next week, and if I'm a little slower than what it says in our outline, don't worry. I want you guys to absorb this stuff because we're changing a few things for you, right? What am I doing? I'm getting you to use a new IDE, Visual Studio 2013 Ultimate with Update 4, right? And Visual Studio Web Essentials. And I'm doing things in a different way. There's no dragging and dropping anymore. You're not using your design view to drag and drop, which is kind of new for all of you, right? I'm doing things by coding it, right? So it becomes a little bit more challenging if you're not following along. If you're watching me, you're going to have trouble on the test. Please don't watch me. Please do, right? I really urge you to do that because on a test, I'm going to get you to do something really quickly. I'm asking you to do this, and if you don't know how to do it, you're going to go, oh my God, what am I going to do now, right? Don't do that. Work with me on this stuff. It's the introduction of this idea of a wrapper. The wrapper is around the entire page, and I've talked about header, nav, there's a main, they can use main, and footer, and then underneath that you can start styling so that the nav bar, this is side nav in this particular case, the nav, side nav would be next to the main nav. And how do we do that, right? How do we do a side nav and main nav idea? So here's our side nav and then 2-column layout. And the idea for this would be we want to assign the wrapper, the whole wrapper, a width of 80% with margin left and right of auto. What is this going to do? It's going to center the whole page, the whole wrapper, right, to the middle, right? This is good because if we have different size pages, it's not going to be centered, it's not going to be left justified. Let's do that. Let's add a wrapper to our entire page really quickly before we leave for the day, right? So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go back to my code, right? And here's my header and everything else that I've got going on, right? My footer and blah, blah. I want to add a wrapper, right? So I'm going to kind of create a new div tag. It's not a specific section tag now. It's just a container, an overall container tag, right? And my container is going to have an ID of wrapper attached to it, right? There it is. And I'm going to take, just to be quick, I just take this, kind of cut this thing out and put it at the bottom, right? Here's my wrapper. It's now affecting everything that's inside here. And this page wrapper, this is a very standard way of doing things, by the way. You'll see this in many, many cases, right? I definitely want to put my wrapper somewhere after I've done everything else. I'm just going to go back to my example code, right? And I don't know how I did that. Sorry. And what I want to do, I'm just going to escape out of this for a second. I want to take my wrapper, this information here that I've got, and if you notice, it gives you a background color, right? See if I can copy it for you. And so it's nice and simple. So I'm going to create my wrapper. So it's going to be a wrapper like this. And I'm going to put this code inside of it. Oops. Width of 80, right? In this particular case, the background color is this weird color, right? Almost like a grayish color. If I want to choose the color with Visual Studio Web Essentials, I can choose a color that I like more, right? So I want to choose maybe a more darker color, maybe. I can do that. right? I use my color picker. And now, if I do that, let's see what the effect will be on my new code, right? Refresh. Well, I have the wrapper, and the wrapper has this thing around it, this little color around the whole thing. Not happy with it all, I'll be honest with you. But it does this. It actually centers my entire wrapper, right? So it looks more like some kind of web page now that you see a lot, right? Personally, this is called the box style, right, page. And it's an old style. Nowadays, you see a full page style, which is more what's happening nowadays. And this is good, but I may not want to put my wrapper around my navigation. Sometimes what you have is the top nav like this, and then you have the wrapper that surrounds the rest of your stuff. And your bottom nav, which is down here, would be outside of that as well. Right? So let's go and change that to make it more modern. So I'm not going to leave the wrapper around my nav, right? I'm going to take it out of my header. I'm going to put it underneath with where my main content is. So here's my main content. That's where my wrapper is going to come in. And we can call this page wrapper or whatever you want to call it. Page. Some people call it page as well. And then we take this div tag because it's instead of so my footer is not inside of there, and we're going to put it there. I'm going to kind of highlight everything. I know we're running a little bit over time, but bear with me while I do this. I'm going to format my selection so it's all nicely formatted and save. And now what it should look like is this. You got my header with a bit of a wrapper. Oh, take a look what happened here. How come this happened? Because my div tag has nothing inside of it. There's no margin inside of it to give me this thing. I've got a bit of margin, or sorry, a bit of padding left and right, but no padding on the bottom. And I've got this. What I did do is I added in these borders, which are just for my debugging purposes to split up my code, and that's what this thing does. But at least now it's starting to look more like a page that has some navigation and a little bit of structure to it. I don't have a 2-column layout right now. I only have a 1-column layout. If I wanted to do a 2-column layout, I can add another div tag or another container tag that I would float left, right? I would float one left to the other side. Let's go back 1 second to this. So you see what I've done is I've added a width to this thing of 80%, a margin of auto, and a background color. The header doesn't have a background color. I mean, in this particular case, the example is header is background color. And the nav bar, which is this side nav, in this example, is floating to the left. Well, of course it would be, right? Floating to the left. Let's take a look. I'll make this a little bigger for you so you can see it. So now this is interesting. My nav bar is floating to the left, but it appears here, right? Well, that doesn't say, remember what we talked about. Float left means not only does the nav bar float to the left, but also that this thing here floats to the left of the nav bar. If I wanted my page heading, which my main, to float to the left, this is good, but then it would float my copyright statement to the left as well. So I gotta be careful how I do that. My footer is what I'm talking about. Any questions around this stuff? I know it seems kind of confusing. When we talk box model for the first time, they're like, I don't understand how everything's floating around. It's killing me. This is all relative positioning, by the way. There's no absolute positioning here, right? Everything is relative to everything else. And by the way, absolute positioning is neat. I don't recommend it nowadays because absolute positioning means that you're going to have to take into account the screen size, right? You're guessing that the screen size is going to be the same size because once you do absolute positioning, it's not relative to anything. It means it's going to be exactly the same, the right size. And then if you have a smaller screen, it won't work, right? So there's a place and time for absolute positioning. It can definitely work out, but keep in mind there's a risk that you might affect your content according to your positioning. Okay, that's it for me for today. We'll do more.